So the number one red flag, I guess you could say, is isolation as
Yeah.
one of the earliest pieces that you'll see. If you could break it down into like 2 to 3 others, very simply, what are those other early red flags that you see that often lead to eventual burnout?
Mhm. I would say just like completely defeated, just being completely defeated. Like nothing, I feel like nothing that I do is good enough, and I, not wanting to do something differently. Another one, I would say is overwhelm, like that, just like that overwhelm of like I can't get through things.
Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Working Moms Playbook, the go to podcast for moms balancing careers and babies. I'm your host, Antonia DePace, former editor, current marketing maven, and mom of one. Each week, we're breaking down the systems, mindsets, and support every working mom needs to thrive, whether it be at work, at home, or everywhere in between. So let's get into it. All right, everybody, welcome to the Working Moms Playbook podcast. This week's episode is featuring Kayla Ogletree, who is a licensed clinical social worker who focuses on perinatal mental health, infertility, fertility challenges, child and infant loss, and so much more. Her practices are deep rooted in evidence-based practices such as cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, trauma-informed care, and then also the strengths-based perspective. So welcome, Kayla. I'm so excited and honored to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, Antonia. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to have this platform and to share, and talk more about, today's topic.
Of course. And speaking of today's topic for our listeners, because we, of course, know, but they don't know yet, we are going to be discussing a topic that is so near and dear to both of our hearts as mothers, and of course, as your guys' hearts as mothers. But for some reason, it is also like so little spoken about. It's just like no one ever talks about it. And that is maternal mental health and navigating burnout. And we're really trying to get into the depths of all of this, as well as perhaps coming up with some tips and practices that can help us all today. But Kayla, let us circle back to you. Tell me a little bit about you so that our listeners can have a better idea as well.
Sure, of course. Yes, yes, yeah. Thank you so much for that lovely intro, kind of about me and my practice, and just to give you all a little bit more of a background of me and who I am. So I'm born and raised in New Jersey. I currently live in Kearney, New Jersey. I have a 7-year-old daughter. And the reason why I was like, I wanted to get in with Antonia and talk more with her is because I'm a mother myself, and the reason that kind of led me to my career path, and why I love to support other moms in what I do. So I've been working in with parents, moms for over a decade now, supporting them. And then once I became a mom, I was like, whoa, this is like, there is like so much I don't know. There's so much like,
Yeah.
I was doing early intervention. If you're familiar with early intervention, it helps kids meet their developmental milestones. So I did that for almost a decade. I worked in schools. When I was doing early intervention, I became a mom. I was like, this is something nobody, like you were saying, nobody talks about, like the hormonal
Yeah.
changes. I'm like, what is happening? Why? I remember my daughter's dad was leaving the house. The dog was like whining because he was leaving, and I started bawling my eyes out. I'm like, why am I crying? Like, what is going on? Like,
You don't even know like why you're doing it, which makes it
yeah, I'm like,
even like more bizarre.
like, why am I crying? But no one had, like you said, no one had talked to me really about
Yeah.
like the hormonal shift, and then, as you go through postpartum, like all the changes, like everything just feels so different. Sometimes it can feel very isolating. So long story short, that's why I got into the work that I do. Um some other things about me, I love, especially in sessions with clients, like I love to laugh, I love to crack jokes, I love to sing and dance and just really enjoy life. I love to travel. So those are just little things about me.
Yeah. You kind of just hit one of the talking points on the head where after you have the baby, you're going through so much. There's so much change and it goes far beyond like what you ever expect, right? Like, a baby is going to be a change, or most of us do, right? Baby's going to be a big change. And then you have the baby, you're expecting that change. And then that change becomes even bigger than you ever expected it to be. But then on top of it, you yourself as a mother and as a woman are dealing with so much internally, whether it be the postpartum hormones, navigating new identity shifts as a mother, but also trying to find room for your former self in there, right? Um, there's just there's so much
Layers.
going on. Plus, you're
Yeah,
juggling the schedule of a new child on top of it all, which
exactly.
is even harder. But through all of that, and I even really did this, like, we minimize that experience. And I I don't know why, but, like, why do you think from your expertise and your practice, like, why do you think so many mothers are minimizing this experience of postpartum everything?
Yeah. There's many different nuances to it. There's many different layers, but I see a lot of like we were talking about, just not talking about all of these things, all of these changes. And I know this, like, I'm speaking from my own personal experience, like moms are just like mom does everything,
Yeah.
mom, and
Yeah.
like she's the default. Like everyone goes to mom. That was kind of normalized. And it's not until now that we're really talking more about mom needs more support. We talk about this village, but sometimes that village is not there for mom too. So
Yeah,
it's just it's not normalized for moms to seek. I think we're making some movements now, but for a long time that just wasn't something. It was like, no, you're supposed to feel this way. You're supposed to feel like, and no one really talks about it.
yeah. Oh, like, what's interesting too is you look back, like, hundreds of years ago, right? And, of course, the role of the woman has changed drastically. Like, now we have careers. We have many more rights than we used to have. We still have a long way to go, but we have segmented a part in society that we did not have hundreds of years ago. But then in doing so, we of course still hold on to our natural form as mothers. That's just not something that we let go of, and we shouldn't have to. But through all of these stages and steps and advancements to get to where we are today, we have lost that village that was not even a question or an option hundreds of years ago. Of when you had a baby, you had 10 to 20 other women but you were mothering with to make it easier to have different perspectives and different ideas. And you had a grandmother, you had multiple grandmothers, you had aunties. And while, if we're lucky to either have siblings or be married to people with siblings, like, our kids might still have these people, but we've lost that true connected village that we used to have, which I feel like is often also part of what leads to this burnout. We don't talk about what's going on. We minimize our experiences, and we all have so many stars that we're reaching for to get, that while it's getting us closer to our career and our ambitions, for some reason, and totally unbeknownst to me, is taking us farther away from that village that we really need to have it all click and be successful and where we don't burn out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of that saying of like, we're supposed to work like we don't have children. And then mom, like, we don't work.
Yeah.
That's, like, the pressure that we feel, like, just even if it's not from ourselves, like, from society, from, like, I feel like cultural influences, also impact that as well. So that's where the minimization, I think, comes from.
Yeah. When did you first realize that maternal burnout was becoming a serious issue and went beyond just normal exhaustion, which so many people dub it as?
Yeah, yeah. I think working in early intervention and kind of seeing and go and this was before I had my daughter.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
I was like, "This why is this like, this just does not feel like, why is mom and, why is if it's not mom or, like, sometimes it's not mom, sometimes it's grandma or aunt, it is an aunt taking care of a child. But
Right.
why are they doing this all alone?" So which
Yeah,
also made me
yeah.
fearful to become a parent. I was like, "Is this what it's like?" Like, "Is this what is gonna happen?" Like, this just I knew in the pit of my stomach doing that work that this something didn't feel right, and I that's what motivated me and empowered me to do more. How can I support moms because it's such an important job, or support, whoever the primary parent is, raising kids, what else can
Yeah,
I do here? Obviously, it really hit me when I became a parent, and then I actually had a stint where I wasn't in maternal mental health. Um like, formally yet, but I was like, "What can I do?" So had started my own podcast at the time just to
yeah,
have a space to, like, vent it out. It was
yeah.
like it didn't go anywhere, but it was nice to be, like just to have an outlet of, like, having these conversations, even if, like, to whoever was listening, I may have had, like, one listener at the time, but I'm like, "If I can help that one person know that it's okay that you feel this way," and that in turn helped me kind of through that postpartum period. And then when I became a maternal mental health therapist and all of your clients are coming and I'm like they have these like really really large expectations that they're coming to therapy for of like I should be able to handle all of this and I have to, do all of these things and then I have to worry, I'm like whoa 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 like that's just not realistic for you're one person,
Yeah, yeah.
you're a one person and even just like even I think the biggest indicator to me too is like even when there is the village there, quote unquote, feeling like I can't ask for help because then that's going to make me look like I don't know what I'm doing as a mom. And that
Mhm.
really pains me. And
Yeah,
that's heartbreaking to hear, that you feel like you can't reach out for help because people are going to think that you're not doing a good job as a parent.
yeah, and it's hard. I mean, I'm, of course, very lucky to have many friends who, we love and accept each other despite the different ways that we mother and parent. However, the society of mothers throughout the United States, and this is not everybody, but it can be really judgmental and really harsh, and it is, like, worse than you ever could think it could be, and there's really no reason for it, for all of us to be pitted up against each other, and there's really no rhyme or reason, but it makes it even harder because you do feel like you almost have something to prove, and you do feel like you have to look like you have it all together because there's so much exhaustion and burnout that everybody is kind of like in everybody's business
Mhm.
because of it,
Yep.
and it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
When it comes to maternal burnout versus just being tired, right? How can a mother tell the difference between normal fatigue and true burnout? Like, what are those warning signals or red flags that they can be more conscious of to help us either take a step back or help us to ask for more help?
One sign of burnout is kind of dreading the experience, like, "Ugh, I really don't I don't wanna do anything." That's a first warning sign. Another one is just, like, maybe avoiding people, even, when avoiding conversations with a partner, with a family member, like, those are signs of burnout. Um, or when things just, you can't get through things, you can't finish tasks, that's a sign of burnout. Like, you'll start things and not finish them, because you just you can't get through it. You can't get through it. Psychologically, you're distressed. That's usually a sign of burnout. When it's fatigue is, it usually is not long lasting. So burnout is usually longer lasting. You're avoiding tasks for weeks on end. You're not wanting to engage with other people for weeks on end. When it's just fatigue, you wake up and you're like, oh, I didn't get enough rest today, and I feel tired. But then, you make note of that, you're able to do something different. And then the next day you feel a little bit better, because you're able to
Yeah.
like get some more rest.
What are you seeing is happening for those moms who aren't getting help to manage the burnout? Like what is that looking like in their homes? What is that looking like in their lives? What is it looking like in terms of how they're parenting versus how they
Mhm.
want to parent?
Right? Yeah, it makes it challenging to do the things that they want. It puts a challenge up in regards to how they can even show up for their own child. It doesn't allow them to see how much they are doing, and it makes them feel like they're not doing enough. So that does interrupt the connection that they have with their child sometimes. It can lead to anxiety, it could lead to depression if you're not working through these things with someone. I'll see a lot of isolation. I see that often. So a lot of the work that I do and what I really try to focus on with moms is if they don't have that village or have that community, like I'm like, let's just get you in touch with one other person. Let's try a support group. Maybe a neighbor has a child. Just
Yeah,
having, even if it's like a small interaction. I'm like, you have to get out of the house. You have to leave the four walls, because that's when the four walls will start closing in.
sure.
So getting some fresh air. So
Yeah.
that's that's really, that's a lot of what I see. There's a lot of isolation a lot of the
Mhm.
times.
So the number one red flag, I guess you could say, is isolation as one of the earliest pieces that you'll see. If you could break it down into like two to three others, very simply, what are those other early red flags that you see that often lead to eventual burnout?
Mhm. I would say just like completely defeated, just being completely defeated. Like nothing, I feel like nothing that I do is good enough, and not wanting to do something differently. Another one I would say is overwhelm, like that, just like that overwhelm of like I can't get through things.
Yeah. And even then, asking for help it can feel so hard for so many
Mhm.
moms. I mean, especially if it's a mother who is, like, just used to being able to do everything on her own. Um, I know for me, like, prior to having my son, like, I was just boom, 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 like, able to do it all myself, like, I can handle it all, I can handle multiple things at once. Um, my brain was, like, fully sharp, no mom brain.
Got you. Yep.
And so you're, like, used to not asking for help, and then at one point, I can't even tell you at what point during my postpartum journey, but I just something, like, clicked in my brain, and I was like, "Oh, I can ask for help for that."
Mhm. Mhm.
It's so simple, and it sounds so
Yeah.
silly because you're like, it is just such a simple thing to ask for help, but for some reason, it is so hard for us, and there does not seem to be a reason why. But with that in mind, we hold so much invisible labor that a lot of people don't see. That then also leads to like we almost don't even know what to ask for help for because it's just like an invisible daily task that we're so used to doing. It's like the clutter in the corner that you stop seeing if it sits there for long enough. How does that invisible labor contribute to resentment and emotional exhaustion?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I would say it's like the number one reason, you know, when especially with the clients that I meet with, like why they harbor resentment, whether it's
Mhm.
towards a partner or family members that don't check in on them, right? Not not feeling seen, in that invisible load. So something I actually talk with clients about, I'm like, how can someone else take responsibility for this thing? How can you communicate to the other, to someone else? How can we get it off your thought plate? Um, so really working with moms and parents on, like, communicating those things, because they are so unseen, and sometimes we have to I encourage moms, like, sometimes we have to change our behavior so that others can change theirs. So it's teaching, and that's what I do. So when I'm working with a client who's expecting, or even in postpartum, we're planning that out too. That has to be part of the plan too, because we focus a lot on just birthing the baby, which is very, very important. But we don't give a lot of thought or conversation to what's going to happen when baby's here. I let clients know, like, there is an invisible load to motherhood that no one else can see. So we have to tell them, and we have to have a plan of, like, okay, how are we going to share household responsibilities? How are we going to share, like, baby care? What's the expectation? Having that conversation with your partner about, whether, if it's not your partner, whoever's helping you take care of the baby at
Hmm.
the time. How
And it
can you
goes
share?
so far beyond just like the beginning stages, too. I think that's
Yeah.
important to highlight here as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because now I'm with a 7-year-old and I'm like, "Whoa." Like, there is, like, a big emotional shift at 7 that nobody talks
Yeah.
about, and I'm like, so if I know that I have clients that are in, like, the same stage, I'm like, I'm talking to them about it because 'cause I'm like, "No one
Yeah.
talked to me about this." Like, there is, like, every stage, there's something different happening that we don't know, and it's okay to feel like, it shouldn't feel easy.
Yeah.
It should
Yeah.
never feel easy, but back to, like, our original point of, like, you can ask for help because asking for help is hard to do for adults.
Yeah.
We are so used to doing things on our own and not needing help, especially if you're independent, you're living on your own, like, you're not asking anybody for assistance, it's like like you were saying, Antonia, like, you've been doing those things on your own for so long, so it's such a big learning curve too. So something else we have to be comfortable with is relearning, being
Yeah.
okay that you don't know how to do something. And it's okay that it feels uncomfortable to ask for help. But the more you do it, it will get, a little bit easier to do. I think some part of us also as adults to make changes, like, to totally be like, do a 180 is, like, not realistic either. It's like, we will struggle still, even when we do start to ask for help. Like, there will be moments where we do struggle, you know? So, just recognizing that piece too.
It's hard. And I think there's all these added pressures, especially in today's society, especially around the idea of the good mom and what a good mom is supposed to look like and what a good mom is supposed to do and what a child of a good mom is supposed to be like, and it's damaging. But what would you say from that good mom avatar, as we'll call it, what would you say are the most damaging characteristics of her for the real everyday mom?
Just, like, unrealistic expectations. I think it's like we like these pressures because also too, like, we don't have, and I tell clients this all the time. I'm like, we don't know how baby's going to come into this world and what their needs are going to be. You may have a child that doesn't want to sleep, but that does not indicate that you're a bad mom. You may have a child that doesn't want to eat, or feeding is a real big challenge for your child. They're very colicky. They have allergies. Like, that does not mean you're a bad mom. Being a good mom, that idea puts a lot of pressure on moms, and I would say, like, the unrealistic expectation because there's a lot of things we don't have control over.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
so much we don't have control over. It's this idea that you are in control of everything. So if it doesn't go this way, then it's your fault, which is just that's just not true,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep. And I feel like on the day to day, like pre-motherhood, we don't put as much pressure on ourselves
Right.
for those things. You're running 5 minutes late. You're like, oh crap. But you're not, it's just not the same level because it's not necessarily your fault. Crossing over into maternal mental health and burnout specifically for those working moms. Um, how does returning to work really impact maternal mental health? What have you seen during your time?
Increased anxiety, like, how am I going to fit in work. It also depends on where your child is at that point. Like, if they're still not sleeping through the night, a lot of the time is like, how do I manage work and I'm still only getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night? So it is a direct correlation on maternal mental health. And when I'm working with a client, I will we have to come up with like a action plan, almost like to all my therapists out there, almost like a crisis intervention plan, but like we need to talk about like how are we going to have like protective factors here? Is it possible, depending on where the client is can we start on a modified schedule? Can we work from home? Is there anything we can do here to help you transition? Depending on, not every client needs that, but we start talking like minimum of 4 weeks ahead before they go back to work. How are we going to have some protective measures in place so that this transition does not feel so distressing? Like, there is a level of distress because you're separating from your baby. It's okay that this doesn't feel natural, that this feel like you feel sad. I remember I bawled my eyes out the entire day before I had to return to work. And it's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay. I've helped moms stay at home too if like that's where they are. But in our world, in our society, we have two parents that work, in order to make a living. Like, they have to work. So sometimes that's just not a reality for a
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
Um, but it 1,000%, correlates with like uptick. If you if you're untreated and you're transitioning back to work, you're still within the postpartum period at that point, but you have a higher risk of having major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety. So it turns into one of those if it goes untreated and you're transitioning back to work. So it does exacerbate your symptoms if the supports aren't in place, if things like that aren't happening for the parent going back to work.
We often wait so long to seek help, not only from family members, not only from villages or friends, but in terms of counseling and therapy. We often utilize it as a emergency, I'm about to hit rock bottom or have already hit rock bottom, right? That's often when many of us seek help from a professional. In your opinion, when should a mother start to look into professional services to help manage these major chapters in life?
Absolutely. One thing moms can do is they can ask when they find out that they're expecting, they can ask their OBGYN if they could do a perinatal depression screening to see where they are. I think as soon as you find out you're pregnant that you should be in some sort of counseling. It's because of the major life change and all the stressors and everything that comes with that. But if to have like some people need like the marker. So checking in with when you go to your OB appointments, making sure that they're doing some won't a lot of OBs won't do it until the end of like until baby's here.
Yeah.
But just
Yes.
requesting like, can you do a screening for me? I just want to kind of see where I am. So they're gonna give you a questionnaire. It's usually like I think it's about like 8 questions just to
Mhm.
see where you are. Um
Yeah.
and making sure that they're sitting with you and giving you the feedback of like, okay, this is where you scored. There's usually like mild, moderate, severe levels. So if you're in that mild to moderate area, that's when I definitely would start looking into, because it also a lot of the times when I sit with clients, it's like it's taken me forever to find you, like, so there
Yeah.
is that waiting period. So before it gets to that severe area, like, to be preventative, pregnancy is a life-changing event, so you need support. So if it's and it doesn't necessarily have to be therapy all the time. I would say set up supports in any way. If you don't wanna start with counseling, if that's not your jam right now, um, try a support group. Like, just try to start to build that support for yourself.
Yeah. And like just navigating back to the screenings for a moment, like it even that can be so misleading, right? Because I don't think there's a solution to it unless you've thought of like that happy unicorn, beautiful solution, no issues intact. But I know for me, like in my experience, you almost and this is just like some people, right? Like some mothers totally recognize what's going on in their bodies right away, because it's at that high of a level. But then there are some mothers like me, for example, where the changes are obviously immense when you have the baby. Your hormones are everywhere, but it can be very hard to decipher what is a normal feeling to be having and what is not a normal level of that feeling to be having where you should be seeking. I mean, I had to fill out that screening multiple times after I had John. And of course, it changes on the day to day. But in my brain, the level of anxiety that I might have been experiencing or the level of like burnout that I was experiencing was like in my brain natural to what I thought I was supposed to be experiencing. And I think back onto it now, and I think I certainly was not at like a high emergent level of like needing help, but like I could have benefited, I think, from helping to manage certain situations, creating boundaries, managing household, and really just like having more of a guide because like it's so hard to figure out what is normal.
Yeah,
It's
it's
so
all you hear
easy
when
to
you go
fall
when
through
it
the
goes to
cracks.
news, on the news, that's what you're hearing about, right? When it's, like, at that
Yeah.
very, like, very severe
Emergent. Yeah.
emergent place.
Yeah. And you're like, well, I'm not having intrusive thoughts. Like I don't want to like do anything drastic, right? You're like, so I'm okay.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
meanwhile, you're having anxiety about silly things. I mean, for me, it was driving over bridges,
Mhm.
which was like, I mean, it's still a little bit of anxiety, but I've always had a little
Yeah.
bit of iffiness around
Yeah.
bridges.
Yeah.
But like that for me was like big with a
Mhm.
newborn. And
Mhm.
it's like definitely could have gotten help to to navigate that. But
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
because it wasn't very drastic, it didn't seem like it was something that I really needed to seek help for. And so many moms fall through the cracks, I feel like, because
100%.
I almost feel like that screening is like a 0 to 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you get in there and you're like a lot of moms will be like, "I can't answer this truthfully." Like, "I don't know this like,
Yeah.
I don't
We're
have."
afraid.
Where if you're scared, like, what if I
Mhm.
say this, like, what are they gonna do? Like, am I gonna lose my baby if I say
Mm.
this? That's where the work still needs to be done with maternal health and maternal mental health, is really educating providers on it's really explaining the screening and why it's important and what resources and what this means and sitting with a new parent afterwards and it kind of going through the screening and talking about what the different categories are and when they should get help, so that I think we're making some progress there, but for moms, for anyone listening, like you can always ask your provider to sit with me, go through the screening. You have to stop your provider or have your partner do it. Have them in the room with you,
Yeah.
because you you should not know what, like you don't have to be the one that decides like, do I need help? Is this okay? Like you don't know that. You're the person that's not your responsibility to know. But if you are feeling like you need more support, it's okay to ask for more support, and that could be the benefit of counseling, right? It's like your therapist will do an assessment. If they think you're okay and that you don't need ongoing therapy, they're going to tell you that.
Mhm.
You don't have to make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. You put it in the hands of somebody else.
Mhm. Mhm.
So then, looking forward, what are some small, realistic steps a burned out mom can take today?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. There is this new phenomenon and I have kind of been doing it with clients too, because self-care is self-care is really where you can resolve burnout, but as a parent, you can't do self-care like you did before.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're calling it microdosing self-care. So, and I kind of I've been doing this a lot with my clients for a long time, but it's really just finding any small moments you can take for yourself. Whether it's I can step outside for 5 minutes just to get some fresh air. You have a porch or something, baby sleeping, they're right there. You could go outside and just or open the window, breathe in some fresh air. You have to find ways to keep doing the things that bring you joy. And it may not look the same way as it did before. But if, for example, if you like reading, read for 5 minutes. That's something you love, you know? And it even to like make it even more simple. Like you have to take care of your basic needs. You have to take care of your basic needs. So that's where the planning before babies here comes into play because we're talking about, okay, how am I going to shower? How am I going to
Yeah.
feed myself? How can someone
Yeah.
like in my how who okay, who do we have in the support system? Can they make
Yeah.
meals? Like we're assigning jobs and I'm like if people are coming over, they're helping you so that you can get in the shower and you can
Yep.
feed yourself.
Hmm.
So we're doing a lot of that. So it starts there, like being able to take care of your baby. Those that has to happen first. So if you're not there yet, find talk to your partner. I need to be able to shower. I need to be able to feed myself and take care of those things. Sleep is also in the research in maternal mental health links back to sleep because we're not getting a lot of it when we're new parents. Um, so figuring out ways and I have a lot of families that get really creative about like creating schedules and like let's have different they call it shifts. And then determining when more intervention might be needed. Like you may need like there are sleep consultants. They can be costly, but they can be worth it if you're trying it's like the last I would say that's the last like step to take. Like if you've tried everything, maybe still not sleeping, call a sleep consultant. Even if you do just one meeting with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
just a baby sleep consultant. Part of the work too that I do, and I don't want to leave this population out too, is like when you're trying to conceive or expand your family, like that's where a lot of this can be helpful too. So
Yeah.
any people out there listening or anyone experiencing like fertility and infertility challenges, it's good to have this in place too because these things even start in preconception as well. Um, so any little, I would say like something to take away that you could do today is any little thing you can do. If you were an artist, if you anything you used to do, finding like small, it could be 5 to 10 minutes, finding time, you know, just somewhere to do those things. Guided breathing is also another thing you can do for like 2 to 3 minutes. Um, and really talking to your if you have a support network, talking to them about how you're feeling and asking for help.
Yeah. It's very important. Well, you just hit it on the head here, but of course, if any listeners have any added questions or there's things that we didn't cover, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram. You can find me at Strength and Nurture Counseling on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook as well. You can, if you wanted to inquire about anything else and wanted to send me an email, you can send me an email to info@strengthandnurture.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I think we've really been able to cover and get some great information. And I'm hoping you guys, as listeners, are able to benefit from some of this. For those listening, thank you so much for joining today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Kayla, thank you for coming on. I hope to be able to have many more conversations to come. I'm just in all of the work you're doing, and I'm very hopeful and excited for a future where it can be better for
Yeah.
moms because of people like you trying to make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely speaking with you.
It's been amazing speaking with you as well. For those listeners, thank you again so much for listening to this week's episode of the Working Moms Playbook. If you like this episode, rate it, comment it, and if you don't want to miss an episode, feel free to subscribe below. I will see you all again next Wednesday for the next episode. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode of the Working Moms Playbook. And also, thank you so much for sharing this episode with any and every working mom who might benefit. Also, thank you for subscribing. It means so much to be able to continue to grow this village of working moms in a world where our villages can feel fairly small. Keep an eye out for next week's episode, always debuting on a Wednesday, and I can't wait to see you there.